This week on the Baseline Podcast, Brice Palm joins the show. Once again, he's back to talk about his Philadelphia Eagles. But before we talk about that, we break down every matchup from last week, what went well, what went wrong, and of course, we have to preview this week's matchups as well as give our predictions for who's going to win each game. And then we talk about the UFC. What does it mean to have John Bone Jones come back? And what is the biggest fight coming up over the next few months? All that and so much more coming up on the Baseline Podcast. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Baseline Podcast. I'm Ben, that's Josh, and yes, Brice is back with us. He's trying to catch Jared. He's trying to catch my brother to be the most appeared ever on the show. What is this, Bryce's third time? Third?
Does this tie Jared?
Fourth. No,
this is my fourth.
Yeah, this ties Jared because Jared's been on four times.
This one would tie him back up.
So you're tied now with my brother for first place. Jared, I'm sorry, but now you're going to have to figure out how to get back on. But if the Bengals win the Super Bowl, you're never allowed on. So we already have
just going to say, it probably depends on whose team goes farther in the playoffs, right?
You got to remember where this is going.
So he's a Bengals fan. So
he's
a Bengals fan.
It's ridiculous.
Oh, he's not, or he is?
No, he is. It's just we don't talk about it.
Okay, so watch us get like an Eagles-Bengals Super Bowl, then we'll both have to come on at the same time.
Just stop. That's not happening. But anyways, welcome back to another episode with us here. We're going to be talking about a lot about the NFL, obviously, everything like that. It's a wet and rainy night here in Hungary. I was coaching and I was drenched all night, so I had to take a hot shower when I got home. But anyways, back to the real stuff. Josh, Brice, how was your weekend? Are you ready for some new football stuff?
I won some money over the weekend, so shout out Ohio for legalizing the sports bets.
Is this scary though? That Josh, are we gonna have like are we gonna have to take you through counseling? Like, is this gonna become like?
It depends, man. I'm in the plus still, man. I'm in the plus, so we don't have anything to worry about yet. This is the crazy thing too. I put bets on 3 games, $10 on each one. I only won one of them, but I came out positive $50.
Jeez.
The bet that I won was from the Bills-Dolphins game. It was a same game parlay. So I picked the Bills to score over 28.5 points, Stephon Diggs to get over 74.5 yards. I got a Dawson Knox anytime touchdown on there, and then Josh Allen over 254.5 yards passing. All of them hit.
So nice.
Yeah, I would have hit my bet on the Giants-Vikings game, which, Ben, I think when we were talking last week, I actually did pick the Vikings to win, but I put money on the Giants. And the only thing that didn't hit, I put Daniel Jones to be under 274 passing yards since he had only even top 200 like once in his last 4 games, and then he goes over 300, so missed that one by a leg. And then Joe Burrow sticking around 210 yards made me miss my Bengals-Ravens bet, but we still came out positive, like I said. So
I mean, I could have called the 4 missed field extra points. I could have called that one
from that Bucks Cowboys game.
That was awful.
Yeah,
did they let him on the plane? Did they let him on the plane? I don't know. We haven't found that out yet.
They let him kick later in the game when they got their I think their 5th TD.
Ridiculous.
Yeah, he did make one.
Brice, so
I didn't even know that.
Great. I did a couple things outside of the home, but I did manage to catch most of I watched a little bit of every playoff game, and I watched most of them all the way through. So I just love NFL playoff football. It's fun.
It would be fun for me if it wasn't at freaking 3 a.m. every time there's a game kickoff.
Yeah. As an Eagles fan, it's like there were so many different possibilities for who we could play. And I'm just like on the edge of my seat with these NFC games. Like, who are we going to play? And I wanted the Giants. And thankfully, that was the outcome I got.
You know what's funny, Brice, is that you're talking about, the Angles. Are you just saying that because we're both Browns fans, or you just know we're sitting at home, like, not caring really who's playing? Is that what it is, Brice? Is this what we're going with here? You just trying to rub it in?
Sure, let's go with that. Yeah. Well, okay, if I wasn't an Eagles fan, because I'm from Ohio, I would be a Bengals fan. I would skip right over the Browns. Sorry.
Oh, this just hurts.
You wouldn't even get the Browns if you
wouldn't even just skip them over. Anyways, Josh, let's recap some of these games. Josh, what game do you want to start with first and kind of give our thoughts?
Let's start with all of them in order because.
Okay, yep, sure.
The 49ers, I think, come out the most impressive looking team this weekend. I think it's time that we stop giving Kyle Shanahan all the credit for how Brock Purdy has played, because
Yeah.
that kid is balling
Kid can
out
play.
more
Kid
than
can
what Jimmy
ball.
G and the limited amount of time that Trey Lance got. That
Trey
kid's
Lance is a
coming out
bust,
here
by the way.
and winning. We'll see. That's going to be a fun
He's a bust.
conversation for 2023 regular season. Who's going to be playing quarterback? But yeah, man, Brock Purdy is the man. And
The Purd.
I wouldn't have. I think we were talking. I did go ahead and say that 49ers are coming out of the NFC for the Super Bowl. And after watching Brock against Seattle, I mean, I'm feeling very confident in that
I did
right
pick
now.
Seattle though, so I'm now just hurting. But
I
it's
mean,
fine.
I didn't see the game coming from Brock. I think that was the big key. Like, he had been getting like over 200 yards, and this one he just exploded. Like, this was like, I guess would you say this was his coming out party?
Yeah, I would say yeah. I think the thing with the 49ers is that it's like it's been the weirdest year. Like they've had so many different quarterbacks. They've like it's like their offense, like they had so many weapons, but it's like who was going to be the orchestrator, right? Their defense you knew was good. Like you always knew their defense was going to be good. We knew that. And Nick Bosa, I mean, literally, if he doesn't win Defensive Player of the Year, then there's something wrong with the whole voting of the thing. But I just think they made. I think they made. It made me realize that Geno is still not quite I don't see how Geno can really lead a team in late in the postseason after seeing part of that game. But yeah, I think this was a coming out party for Brock Purdy. I mean, I was hearing people call him the Purd, which I think is a terrible nickname. But the Purd, so I don't know, but Brock, I think, is going to have another great game. He's got to have a great game in order for them to go deep. So it's really interesting. Those are my thoughts. Nothing crazy. Just a very good game by the 49ers. Good play calling. Everything in between.
What
Bryce,
would you say if somebody said, "Oh, I'm sorry, man. I was going to bring up my Brock Purdy question."
Okay, bring up your Brock Purdy question.
I was going to say, what would you say to someone who would say Brock Purdy is like the product of a system? It's like, let's be honest, they do have just.
Well, that's what I've been kind of saying all this time, is that it seems like no matter who Kyle Shanahan throws in at quarterback, that they just win. But
then you got Trey
Lance. The reason I would say right now,
bad.
I guess, that Brock isn't really the product of a system is because we've seen the 49ers win playoff games with Jimmy G getting 8 attempts a game, or getting like 130 yards, no touchdowns, and a pick, and winning the game. And I think we're seeing Brock actually come out here and be a main contributor to their wins, instead of just being the guy in the background, not doing anything to blow the game. Like, he's actually contributing to the team's success. And I think that's maybe more so why I wouldn't call him a product of a system.
I'm curious. I'd have to look into it. How many games has he played with Christian McCaffrey versus like Jimmy G's played? Well, all Purdy's games have been.
Wouldn't all Purdy's games be with Christian?
Yeah, and most of Jimmy G's were as well. Out after the trade deadline, most of his were as well. Because Trey Lance and Jimmy G were because Trey Lance started the year, right?
He was going to be the week 1 starter, and I can't remember if he got hurt in that first game against Chicago.
Yeah, it was something like that.
Was it?
Yeah, I think it was against Chicago. Yeah, because it was that rain game when
it was that rainy game, and it was just ugly stat lines all over the place. Yeah.
Yeah, I want the best for him, but I'm just not ready to be like, oh yeah, he's the guy. Because
they skipped over some guys they should have took. They skipped over some guys.
Like, think about a few years ago with the Vikings, with the year the Eagles won the Super Bowl. I had to bring that up. Case Keenum, like, he's kind of giving me these Case Keenum vibes. He's gonna.
I mean, there's always that chance, right? But
yeah.
I guess we'll see. But I mean, I've seen Brock do it in a playoff game right now, so I'm feeling pretty confident in him. But could he maybe, I guess, flop in his next game, and then I'll be coming on next week and saying like, well, Brock Purdy's Mr. Irrelevant. What'd you expect? That, I mean, that could happen, right?
That is true.
But I think it's to the point where it's going to take more than one bad game to say that, because he has been performing so well.
Yeah, I don't know if he's had necessarily a bad game yet, just because he doesn't have any losses as a starter yet, does he?
Yeah. No. I'm just meaning, like, if he does have a bad game, I think it's going to take more than that to like discredit him, because he's performed so well.
Just like it takes multiple games to say that somebody's like, a winner, it takes multiple games for him to say like, okay, well, this is his actual true self. You see, he's done it like the last 3 or 4 games, he's flopped. So yeah, I follow you.
Yeah, and this will be his biggest stage, Dallas Cowboys, all that.
For sure, man. So I think we've said about everything we can about that game. Later that night, though, Jags Chargers. Ben, I told you that I'm going with my gut and I'm picking the Jags, but I did not expect them to win in that fashion.
I
I don't think anybody else did either.
I I will say this, that I have proven Jake and Blaine Crane. You want to listen to me right now? What did I tell you? I said they'd finish last. Okay, they didn't finish last. Okay, I was wrong about that. Okay, what I did say about the Chargers was that they were going at some point to not have what it takes to win. And I said that, and I was right. What happened was it wasn't the players. I think Justin Herbert, all the guys, they're good players. It's the fact that the coaching sucked. And somehow Staley still has a job. I don't know how he still has a job. And on top of that, they did fire their OC today, which I think was a smart move. But it's very interesting to me how, like, you look at that score. If what it felt like to me, it's exactly what they said. It's like the Falcons losing to the Patriots, right? It was the Patriots, yeah, the Patriots.
Patriots in the
And
Super Bowl, yep, 28-3.
to me, this is the crazy part, though, is that you go into half, you just saw all these like hypes, but you saw Trevor Lawrence and no expression. I remember thinking to myself, he is going to go in there, and he is a ticked off man that is going to do something. And I think we saw he threw a bunch of picks, but at the same time, the second half was like a completely different Trevor Lawrence. And I have said this ever since I watched Trevor Lawrence. When he's at his best, he is one of the best QBs I've ever seen play. When he's at his best, and when he has the guys around him, the Jags offense does not look flashy. It does not have a lot of big names. It is just a offense that knows what they're doing. Their defense is pretty solid. What I saw with the Chargers was just that it was like you can't collapse when you're up that big. Like they're like you physically, this is something that just can't happen. Like when you're a defense, you just lock down. You give them what you have to, but you make sure it's locked down. And I just think the Chargers have proven to me that they can't win. They can't win on the big stage.
Yeah, it's just something with, I think, the whole organization, dude. Because even when like Marty Schottenheimer was head coach and Philip Rivers
Yeah.
was playing quarterback over there, they never could. There always was something missing there. Brice and I have a mutual friend, Ryan. You're here if you were listening. Shout out to you, but big Jags fan. Been one for a while. I'm sure he was pumped about this. Did you get chat with Ryan at all after the game, Brice?
Yeah, I was texting him throughout the game, and then in the first half, I'm like, I'm so sorry. And it was like, I can't remember, like 27-7 or something like that. And yeah, I was just like, Trevor Lawrence needs to work on his poise. He's too emotional. Granted, 2 of those picks weren't really his fault, but I'm one of the many, actually, probably the majority, because it's a common trend right now that everybody's talking about. Is a lot of people went to sleep at halftime for that game,
Yeah.
and then like woke up, and then I'm one of those people that went to sleep, and I woke up towards the end of the game and like looked at my phone and but I'm super happy for Ryan. We've always really wanted an Eagles Jags Super Bowl. It's not going to happen, I don't think, but you never know.
Yeah, man. Yeah, Jags, dude. I don't know if you guys saw. I can't remember if it was one of the sports books or if it was ESPN that posted that one guy that bet $1.4 million on the Chargers to win at halftime. It was only to win $11,000. That's how much he had to risk. And yeah, that's a tough loss right there. But I was working that
Chargers.
evening.
The Chargers were my most overrated team and amongst all the playoff teams.
Thank you.
Before the game, even
Thank you.
I was talking with several other my friends. Was like, the Jaguars got the best matchup they could get. Like a very winnable game against the most overrated team.
Thank you.
And they won.
Agreed.
Yeah, I'm with you too. I don't think many people were honestly scared of the Chargers all year. It's just always something with them, and we'll see what happens with Staley going forward. But yeah, that was all of Saturday's games. Moving into Sunday, we kicked it off with the Bills and the Dolphins, and I mean that it looked like this game was going to be runaway. I think the Bills jumped out to 17-0, and then next thing you know, Skylar Thompson, third string quarterback, mind you, for the Dolphins. Willis's team, I believe they even had the lead at one point in that one. That game was a lot closer than what I think most people expected, but Buffalo survives nevertheless, moves on. Do you guys have any concerns about Buffalo going forward, seeing that they struggled with this Miami team that should have been like a 2 or 3 score win, most would have thought?
I think for me, our offensive coordinator on our football team, he's a Dolphins fan, so if he's watching this, um sorry, that's just terrible. But no, he I gave him a hard time at like one point when they were down like 17-0, and then I looked up and I was like, oh crap, I shouldn't have sent that already. But no, I think with the Bills, what worries me is that like it's like they've had these games this year where it's like inconsistent at times. Like it's weird. Like at times they look so dominant, and I know Josh and I, we've talked about that. Like they've looked so dominant. And there's other games where I'm like, what? Like what's going on? And so for me, it's like if you're going to beat the Bengals, if you're going to beat the Chiefs, if you're going to beat the Jags, and you beat some of these teams, like if you're going to beat these teams, you have to be at your best the whole time. And what happened was they let their guard down, and what happened? The Dolphins chip right back in, especially against a third string quarterback. And that's another question for the Dolphins is do they replace Tua? Like, are you willing to have a guy that's going to have concussion issues, those kind of things? That's a whole nother situation. I think Justin Fields would be a great fit there. I'm just saying, if they really wanted to make a move, that's my bold prediction for the draft. The Dolphins trade for Justin Fields. But I think, but we'll get to that at another point. But I think, speaking of the Bills, I think if the Bills can offensively be consistent and their defense can stay where it needs to be, they can win a lot of games and they can possibly get to a Super Bowl. But that's a if, ands, or buts.
Anything to add into that, Brice?
I'm not too worried about it. I mean, it's playoffs, and I just think anything can happen. And this is one that I only watched the first half, so I don't have a lot of comments other than the Bills. They score every game. Like I don't think they're struggling offensively where it's inconsistent. They put up 28, some 30 points every game. Yeah. It's just their defensive struggles. They've had just miscellaneous players get hurt all year on the defensive end. And I think it's just finally showing a little bit more now that playoffs are coming. But I think they score enough to where they'll keep up with anyone who also scores on them.
Yeah. I mean, we saw it last postseason, that game with the Chiefs that everybody's going to be talking about for decades. I mean, the offense is definitely explosive enough that they can do that. But I think another thing that really helped Miami was just the pressure that they were getting on Josh Allen. They were hitting him a little bit more than what I think he's used to. They got couple interceptions there. Yeah. Right. So, and then these are two teams that are division rivals too. And anytime you face a team for the third time in a season, like there's always that chance for that. And we saw that a little bit of that maybe with the Bengals and the Ravens too, which we'll talk about in a little bit here. But before that one, the Giants and the Vikings. Daniel Jones, I have not seen the Giants all season, but yeah, you could say the Vikings did choke. Pass defense is a little rough over there, but this is one of the best games I think Daniel Jones has played all season. I haven't watched the Giants all year. I didn't realize how much of a runner Jones is. So watching him, I guess, kind of just make these designed runs was just a little surprising me. But he was doing great at it. So kudos to Brian Daboll for, I guess, the great game plan for being able to limit Minnesota just enough and take advantage of the opportunities that were there.
And you know what's crazy is you think about 2 years ago, they were talking about Daniel Jones. They need to get him out. They need to get a different quarterback. And I've always said with Daniel, he, as an Ohio State fan, he reminds me a lot of a JT Barrett, but obviously white. The reason I say that is because he's a sneaky runner. Like he's a guy that you don't realize is faster than he looks. He's more athletic than he looks. They're trying to compare. So. They're trying to compare him to Eli Manning, and I'm like, dude, this guy could make Eli Manning. You can't. Right?
Eli couldn't run a 40 in under 10 seconds.
And that's the thing. And Daniel, I think, showed, right? He's the first quarterback ever to throw for over, I think, 250 and have 70 rushing yards and like 3 touchdowns. Like he played the best game. This is the thing about the Giants. We've always said over the last few years, can the Giants get over that hump? Can they get a coach that can coach them well? Can they get a consistent quarterback play? Can they get Barkley healthy? Can they get these receivers to work? And I every time you're looking, you're like, when is this going to happen? When is this going to happen? This is the year, I think, where the NFC East was so dominant. It was so strong. But I think also you had so many other weak teams like NFC South and stuff that they took advantage of the year they could do it. And I think for the Giants, it's an interesting team. Barkley looked like the Barkley of old. And we say old. He's only like 26.
He's not even.
This is his 5th season. Yeah.
Yeah. We could say old, but I think for me, the biggest story is the fact that the Vikings once again choked. How many times we talk about the Vikings going to the playoffs and they choke? This
1
is
p.m.
just
Kirk Cousins is a legend, but
yeah.
4:40 p.m. Kirk
And
Cousins
that's my other
is a
question.
whole other.
Does Justin
player.
Jefferson try to get a trade out of Minnesota? Do they go a different way with quarterback? I've heard rumors that the Bengals have sort of wanted to get that team up of Jamar Chase and Justin. That would be scary.
Game
and that
over
would
for the
be
league, bro.
that's just done, right?
Well, the Bengals
But we'll
have
see.
some cap issues coming up, or
They do,
like I
yes.
think.
They
Yeah,
still have
they
to
don't-
pay
because they-
Joe and Jamar
It's
eventually.
because
Those
they
guys
have
are on
it.
rookie
They have
deals.
what's called a owner that does not like to spend money, even though he's a billionaire. But yeah, so I that is my thoughts. Brice, do you have any thoughts to add on to that about that game?
So I guess my thoughts would more come from a question when you were saying you said the Vikings choked. I'm of the opinion that I think the Giants won rather than the Vikings choked. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously they did win, but do you think it's more that the Vikings played bad and should have won, or I think the Giants are just better?
The Vikings, that was a 13-win team.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. And what I'm saying is the what they put in the regular season, right? And we've said this about the Vikings so many times in their history. They put these great regular seasons in, and then they choke, right? You didn't see the old Patriots do that. You didn't see the Mahomes Kansas City Chiefs do that, right? You don't see these teams that are dominant in the regular season and then they just fall off, right? The only team we see that do that is the Cowboys, but that's because it's the Cowboys, right? But like, to me, I mean, choke is because they should have won that game. I'm not saying that they were the better team. I'm just saying they should have won that game. If you look at everything, you line it all up, they should have won that game. Because they didn't, for me, it feels like it's a failure. I mean, how do you look at that season as success when you were the best team? Really, if you look at it for the last stretch of the season, you were one of the best teams, if not the best team, and yet you can't win a playoff game against a team that we didn't really know a lot about truly in the Giants.
Yeah, that's a good take on it. Yeah, I had the Vikings as my NFC Championship team at the beginning of the season. So I
had the Denver Broncos, so I had the Denver Broncos in the AFC, so we don't talk about that anymore. But I bring it up every week, so I don't know why I say that. I bring it up every week. Anyways, Josh, what was the next one? The Ravens, right? Was that the next game?
Ravens, Bengals, yeah. So Bengals in this one coming into the game with 3 of their 5 starting offensive linemen out, and I think we saw that with how much Joe Burrow struggled. And then I think later in the game, Jonah Williams, left tackle, I believe, also exits the game. So Joe's kind of out here running around for his life, but thank goodness Lamar Jackson's not the opposing quarterback. And we saw the inexperience with Tyler Huntley. We saw some frustration with J.K. Dobbins about how they handled things at the end of the game. But again, just like the Bills and Dolphins, this game was maybe closer than what it was. Maybe those injuries played a factor into it too, but also just, when you face a team 3 times in a row, especially back-to-back weeks, because they ended the regular season against each other too. Maybe that game, I guess it makes sense that it was that close.
This is what I'll say. And Josh and I talked about this before we started recording. Michael Vick came out and said, something about Lamar and how he played a whole season with that torn MCL and Lamar won't come out to fight with his brothers, basically. And I'm just going to say this. If you're a Ravens fan, I'm with you because I have friends that are Ravens fans. I know some of them are like frustrated because, okay, if you don't want to be here, and that's been kind of, it seems like that way because he's not taking the money they've offered him. If you don't want to be here, it's fine. But if you're like going to be there, like you should suit up. It's playoffs. Like, I'm thinking of the Ohio State, for instance. Eichenberg literally broke both his hands and he still played the biggest game of the year for Ohio State, right? So for me, I guess I get it. There's money on the table. I understand this is what these guys think, but I guess I'm still old school enough to go like, dude, like this, like he would have been the difference. If you look at that score line, if Lamar Jackson's in that game, that is a different ball game. That fumble probably doesn't happen. This game is a different play and you might see an upset, right? So if I'm J.K. Dobbins and some of those guys, I'm like looking at Lamar like, dude, like I get it. You're not feeling the best. And again, we don't know how injured he was, but if he's 50-50 leading up to the game, I feel like he's good enough to at least be out there. But that's my opinion. So and with the game, I really don't see. It was like Josh said, it was kind of like either way, and whoever had the ball really last was going to win. Those are my thoughts. Brice.
Yeah, I was really surprised that Lamar didn't play because I was seeing reports that even in the last week of the season, week 18, that Lamar was like, oh, he it seems like he can play, but we're going to wait. So like, oh, okay, so he'll play for playoffs. And then he just didn't. And I don't know what all the politics and money
I wouldn't want him
issues
back.
are behind
If I
all
was a
that.
Ravens fan, I wouldn't want him back. I'd be like, yeah, go chase it.
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't seen anything he said, but Robert Griffin, I don't know. You guys probably talked
Yeah, I
about
saw
that.
it.
Or
But
saw
that was Robert Griffin though says things that I'm just like, dude, you need to just. There's moments where he says things I'm like, dude, you're just trying to get popularity.
Just the most cringe
You're
broadcaster
trying to be
in
relevant.
football
He's
right
trying to be
now.
relevant. He's trying to be
Relevant.
A guy that's
I mean,
relevant.
the tweet that he made about not playing because of the leg injury and all that, I mean, it seemed reasonable, right?
It seems reasonable, but the way he was making it seem was like that, like Lamar was like completely with a torn ACL, like complete, like it never said it was that bad, and that's the thing. I think that's why a lot of fans are frustrated because like we didn't say it was a torn ACL. You said he had a strain. Like, okay, then how bad is the strain, right? So at the end of the day, I think I get he's chasing money, but is it worth it? Like, are you going to get that contract? Like, whatever. I mean, the Ravens still could franchise tag him, and it could be a whole process. So, but if I'm a Ravens fan, I'm sure there's some out there like, dude, go riddance. Like,
Yeah.
you know,
The whole thing is shady when you really think about it, because I mean, especially with knowing the Bengals were going to be beat up on the offensive line, like what?
Dude, take the
it's just an opportunity for the taking.
Put your best foot forward, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's tough to say because, like we said, we don't know like the extent of Lamar's injury, but I would think, being like they were saying 50-50 leading up to the game, that if he was planning on coming back to Baltimore, he would have wanted to go out there because that was his team. Those were his teammates, his boys.
I don't think it's his team.
He was gonna, try to put the team on his back and help carry him to a win. But since he kind of sat out, it makes you wonder, like, well, maybe he's just kind of looking out for himself, for his long-term health, so that he can, get his check in the offseason from somebody. It's going to be an interesting storyline to follow. But I don't know if you guys don't have anything to add to that. We can move on to the biggest blowout of the week, I believe, which was the Bucks and the Cowboys. And last week when Ben and I were talking, Brice, we both concluded that the Bucks are winning this game because it's Tom Brady in the playoffs versus Dak Prescott in the playoffs, and you can't look at the records too closely. But watching the game, it honestly did look like an 8-9 team versus a 13-4 team or whatever Dallas's record was.
Yeah, it did. I was never sold on the Bucks this year.
But see, every time I choose the Bucks, though, every time I choose the Buck or I don't choose them, they go out and like prove me wrong. So like,
it's just kind of like Tom Brady will just prove you wrong as soon as you start to doubt him. So that was kind of like my thought on it.
That was your logic at the beginning of the year. I remember even in our fantasy
it was
football
because
league
it's
chat,
like he's coming out of retirement. He's not coming out of retirement to go into a season with a losing record and like get bounced in the first round of the playoffs. Like he didn't divorce Giselle just to like have an awful last season.
I mean,
now
he's a loser.
Out. Like
he's
he came
a
out
loser now.
Yeah,
like a true loser.
I guess,
wild,
man.
though.
Like this is what he came back for. Like it kind of sucks for him.
He lost
but,
his wife. He lost his career. I mean, I'm just kidding.
It is crazy though when you assess Tampa how much talent they still have there, even in that game, and the fact that they just couldn't even do a little better than that was just so disappointing.
The Cowboys missed 4 extra points and they couldn't even get it in with it. Which by the way, I'm sorry, but did any of you watch the Manning cast? That was hilarious. If you watch Peyton Manning,
a buddy of mine told me the Manning cast was superb last night.
So he was so frustrated. Like he just kept getting mad and more mad every time they missed a field goal. He's like, why is this guy still in the game? He says that like 3 times. Like, why is this guy still in the game? And Eli's just like, I can't believe it. And like the crazy part was like none of them were close. Like he shanked all of them. Like, and it's right down. People don't realize it was right down the middle. Like, this is my thought.
Well, one of them literally hit the top of the pole.
I know. The crazy part is one of our guys at he does some kicking for us here in Hungary on our football team, and he's like, man, like I'm doing it for fun, but these guys are literally getting paid millions to step back there and to kick the ball. Like, if you ever hear what they do at practice, they just snap the ball, kick it. So, like that's what they do at practice, and yet I just don't get it. I don't get. And like. Question is now, what do they do? Do they keep Mara onto the team? Do you not? That's going to be the interesting thing.
I think you got to keep them. I don't know.
Do you want to switch kickers while you're in the playoffs? That's a really tough situation.
Do
you
want to shank a nice little chip shot field goal or something that could win you the Super Bowl? That's the question you have to ask.
Well,
that's also true.
But then I forgot. Wait, hold on. I'm talking about Dallas, so that's not going to happen anyways.
Yeah. I was about to say, was there anything positive to say about Dallas? Did they look scarier? Is there something you're afraid of them about?
this is the thing.
I mean, Dak did not choke. Like
Dak didn't choke.
This was also the first
time
time Dallas won a road playoff game. They were saying since '92. So I think this was, at least they did something they hadn't done before. So that's something that we learned about Dallas. They can win a playoff game on the road, and Dak can not choke in the big moments. So I guess we did learn that they do have it in them.
I think for me, the biggest thing was just, I think the way they used, I think Zeke is starting to, I know Zeke's getting older now. I mean, he's like 27, 28. I think he's getting up there.
Which is old in NFL running back
and
years.
I think you could tell,
he's like 50.
Thing is, you can tell like you can tell he's not the same. Like he's definitely not, he doesn't move the same as he once did, but with that, back the two back combo they have, and the way the receivers are moving, and the way they have, that defense. Micah Parsons, by the way, is just a freaking animal. Those kind of guys that they have, the DBs they have, are good as well. The only concern I have is the consistency for Dallas has never been there in their history. Like they've never had a consistent team, and I don't believe they're going to go win a Super Bowl. And I'll say that right now. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But I just don't see them doing it. So.
Yeah, it's tough, man, because when you read everybody on the offense, like between Dak and then you got the running game with Elliott and Pollard, and then in the receiving game you got CeeDee Lamb, and Noah Brown has really kind of broken out this year, and Dalton Schultz at tight end, and they go out to sign T.Y. Hilton. Like the team, I mean, it's all potential to be scary if they can all put it together. I forgot Michael Gallup too. That's another weapon Dak has to work with. But yeah, who's going to be coming out of the NFC is going to be interesting, because I think Dallas at their best, Philly at their best, and 49ers at their best is like super, super scary. Good luck to the Giants going through any of that. But why don't we go ahead and start with the next round 2 matchups, starting in the NFC. So Giants and Eagles. We'll start with that one since Brice is
prediction.
the
Are we doing
Eagles
prediction
fan
too?
here.
So do prediction.
We can make a prediction.
Yeah, let's do it.
So Brice, tell us why the Eagles lose this one, and why the Giants go on another Cinderella run like they did with the Eli Manning days.
Yeah, it would be the type of year for the Giants to do that again, wouldn't it be? I think the last 2 times they've won it, or at least one of the times they were a 6 seed.
They were like an 8-8, just 7. Sneaking in, and like a 9-7. Yeah, they never were like the most dominant team in the league when they did it.
Yeah. So I mean, if it happens again, that would be quite the story.
Under a new regime too. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, again, like I said earlier, the Giants is the matchup I wanted, just because we played them twice, we beat them, and it's just fun playing a divisional rival. Like, if I were to play a game before the NFC Championship, I'd rather beat the Giants instead of the 49ers or Cowboys.
For sure.
But I'm concerned with the Jalen Hurts shoulder health issue. It's just weird that it seems like it's taken for a long time to heal, so I don't know the extent of that. And I just don't want to see him play like we did in Week 18 against the Giants, where he did well, but he wasn't taking like any risks. He wasn't really throwing super deep balls. He wasn't scrambling at all. And I'm worried about that. So if we did lose, to answer your question, it would be because it's Jalen Hurts. I think he's made a big case to be MVP for that reason, because we saw how the team played without him.
Night and day.
But I just hope his shoulder is good. And if it's good, I'm not. If he comes out there guns blazing, I see him scramble, I'm not too worried at all. Everything runs through him, in my opinion, with this team. But yeah, I'm taking the Eagles.
What's your score prediction? Score prediction.
I think it's going to be closer than you think, just because it's a divisional game. And like I said, we're playing each other for a 3rd time, and they know all kinds of things about each other. But I'm going to say Eagles. Let's go 31, Giants 24. 31, 24 Eagles.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you, Brice. We've seen already some teams play for the 3rd time already in the first round. And if Jalen isn't 100%, that could also be another factor to make this game closer. I'll take the Eagles to win as well. I'm going to go with like a 27-21 final score.
So, so I could go with the Giants and just be, but I learned
and that would be the most Ben Biden thing you've ever done.
I know that, but it is what I do. But I'm going to do this mainly to rub my good friend the road, because either team I choose, this friend, he lives in Philly area, but he is a true Washington Redskins. I'm still going to call them Redskins. Washington Commanders That's who he loves. He roots for them, everything like that. But he lives in Philly area. It's weird. So either team I choose, he's going to hate the fact that I choose them. So Jesse, this is for you. I'm going to choose the Eagles, and I'm going to go Eagles 34, Giants 18. I'm going to go weird. 34.
Not
18.
even a close game then.
Yes. I just
Is
think
that because Jalen Hurts is going to be fully healthy?
I think it's the defense. I think Eagles defense is going to step up. I think Daniel Jones. When you figure out Daniel Jones, we've seen this. If you figure out what Daniel Jones does, which when you figure him out, it's pretty easy to slow him down. He's not like one of these guys that it's going to be like, oh, we never know which way he's going to run. It's pretty straight shooter. He's just going to kind of run straight, or he's not going to do a lot of stuff. And so I think if you can keep him from scrambling, you kind of keep these wide receivers in check. I think that the Eagles defense could do that. And I think at the end of the day, Eagles is going to do what they have to. So those are my thoughts.
And that's the Eagles D-line specialty. We don't let nobody run us. We don't let quarterbacks get around. So good luck doing that in Philly.
Yeah. So that is my prediction. Josh, what is that second game?
That is Dallas and San Francisco, which
this is like a classic old, like,
this is probably the
1970s.
matchup I'm most excited for this weekend, because we're kind of going to get, I guess, validation from one of these quarterbacks, right? Like we saw Brock ball out last week, and we're going to get to see if he can do it a second time. We're also going to see if Dak and Dallas performing well in the playoffs was either a fluke just because they're playing a bad Bucs team, or do they actually have it in them? And man, this is going to be like, I know I picked the 49ers to come out of the NFC, so I'm going to stick with them as the winner in this one. But yeah, this one really could go either way.
What's your score? What's your score prediction?
So I think it's going to be close. I think we're going to maybe see a little bit more points just because both offenses are very good. These are two really good defensive teams, though, too. So maybe we'll see something like around the low 30s. Give me like a 34-31 final for San Francisco moving on.
Interesting. I'm going to go with, this was a tough one for me. I was thinking about it today. I just don't trust the Cowboys, and I believe in the Purd. Yes, the Purd. And
Purd.
I'm going to go with the Purd, and I want to choose the 49ers winning this. I'm going to go 38, Cowboys 24. I think the Cowboys offense kind of – actually, you know what? I'm going to go 38-22 because Brett Maher is going to miss at least 2 more field goals, 2 more extra points.
There you go.
So he's going to shank a couple more. So and then he's going to shank his job out the window. So that's what I think. I think the 49ers will end up coming on top, and I think it's going to be a really good game. But at the end of the day, I think Nick Bosa on that defense line is just going to do a lot for Cowboys. So
someone's going to need to come up with like a big stop in this game, or like a pick six or something like that. Like that could really swing things one way or another, I think.
So that's what I got. I got that, and the Purd is going to lead the way. I need that as a shirt. By the way, that's another merch thing, Josh, that we need to write down. We need to have the Purd.
The Purd, we need to do that. Barstool Sports hasn't done that yet.
Yes, we need it.
They seem to always be the first ones on like these dumb little nickname T-shirts.
So we already decided, Brice, that like my brother has like this phrase that he's going to say. What is it? Oh, cheeks.
It's cheeks.
Yeah, it's cheeks. So we're gonna, whenever we get merch, that's what we're gonna do with that. Josh always has his. I don't even remember what yours is. I can't remember off the top of my head, but
I don't remember mine either.
I said something.
Really yours was gonna be, and that's my political joke for the day.
Yes, that's right. Because I always have political. I have not done one yet. I'll have to think of one here on the way. So okay, getting back to the game. We're getting distracted.
You can say the Redskins joke is political.
That is political. It is very political. So what's your thoughts? Who's your prediction for the Cowboys 49ers game? I know where your heart wants to be. Yeah, I know where your heart is going to be.
I don't like the Cowboys in an away game in San Francisco. I think the Cowboys can win. I don't think they will. I believe in Purdy for this game. I'd go San Francisco. I'm going to say 26-24. I think it's going to be a pretty close one. I think we're going to see Dak try and come back with the final drive, but he's going to do what he does best.
And Brett Maher's going to miss it? Or is Brett Maher going to miss, or is he going to shank a field goal from like 20 yards?
I'm going to say he will miss one this game. Let's go. He's going to miss an extra point.
Brett Maher, that poor guy is just going to be brutalized in Dallas.
Yeah, he could be. We'll see if he's in his head or not.
They're going to have a statue in front of the AT&T Stadium of him just like kicking the ground and dirt flies off, and it's going to be nothing else. It's going to be that's going to be him in the statue.
I actually think the biggest factor for me, at least looking at it, is I think home field advantage does have a huge
That's
play in the
huge.
playoffs.
That is huge.
And I think it's going to be huge for San Francisco. I really do.
All right.
Well, that's the NFC. Moving over to the AFC, perhaps the most lopsided matchup on paper would be the Chiefs versus the Jags. We've seen the Jags make one comeback. I don't think that Kansas City is a team you can go down 27-0 at halftime against, though.
Happening.
Even 14-0 is going to be really tough for them. So I guess I would assume all of us are picking Kansas City. Why don't we make the discussion about what the Jags need to do to keep this close?
Wow. Well, I think the biggest thing is don't throw 4 interceptions. I think
don't throw 4 interceptions and a half. That would be a good start.
I think the second thing is just you can't stop Mahomes. You can't, right? But you have to stop something else. Stop the run, right? Make them beat you with the pass. It's the old coach's adage. Make them be one-dimensional. And if you make them beat them one-dimensional, you keep them in front of them. You know, I said, like, when they lost Tyreek Hill, I know he hasn't lost any game. I mean, he's actually had a better season than he did last year, but losing Tyreek Hill is a lot of a loss because it was that guy that can just do some crazy things. They still have Kelsey, those kind of things. But I think if you make them one-dimensional and you get a touchdown every other drive or every couple drives or whenever you get the opportunity, you get points, whether it's field goals or touchdowns. I don't think the Jaguars can afford to go 2, 3, 4, 5 series where they don't get any points. Because if that happens, they're not going to come back and they're not going to have a chance. So to have a chance, they need to make points on consecutive series, maybe 1 or 2 series in a row, and get stops, bend but don't break, right? Like be able to give up a field goal, be okay with that. But you can't give up these touchdowns or these big plays. So, yeah, those are my thoughts.
Yeah, unfortunately for the Jags, their strength is their defense. And the only way to beat the Chiefs is if your strength is your offense. I know it's kind of stupid to say this, but you have to score more than the other opponent to win the game, obviously.
Yeah.
But they're going to have to score. And like Ben was saying, it's going to have to be any opportunity they can get points. Don't if it's 4th and 2 and you're in the opponent's 30, just get the 3 points. Like keep putting up points. Don't risk. They just have to keep chipping away at something. Yeah. I think that'll be their big thing.
Unless you're the Cowboys and then you just decide to go for it because you have no kick.
It's like, well, we got to take the 7 here. So
take the 8
or the 6 because he'll miss the extra point, right?
Trevor Lawrence is going to need to keep his emotions in check and just work on that poise.
Yeah, I mean, outscoring the other team in this one, it's like, okay, well, let's just say the Chiefs would average, I don't know what their offensive average is, but let's just say they're averaging 35 a game, and it's like your defense is good enough to maybe hold them to 28. If you're only scoring 14 in the game, that defense isn't going to do a whole lot for you. So, yeah, I follow you there. But I think that's the keys, guys. You got to maybe making them one-dimensional can help. Maybe getting a defensive touchdown would help. Taking the points when they're there, for sure. But still, I don't think all that's going to add up to a Jags win.
Score
like I
prediction?
said, I think all of us are picking Kansas City, but my score prediction, I'm going to go ahead and say that Kansas City is putting 35 on the board in this one, and I'll give the Jags 17.
I'm going to go Kansas City 49, Jaguars 20.
49.
Yeah, I mean, the Chiefs'
game.
defense has been suspect at times, but again, they just score so much. So I'm going to say Chiefs. I'm going to go 38-24.
All right.
I like it. I like it. And then the fun game. I think this is going to be the most fun game, at least from my perspective. But Josh.
The fun game, yeah. We didn't get to see the final result from the Monday night matchup, but Bengals-Bills. And we saw the Bills struggle against Miami, I guess. Miami was able to get to Josh Allen. But what's also going to be interesting is the health of the Bengals offensive line in this one and how much the Bills defense is going to be able to get to Joe. So maybe the key matchup in this one, guys, is just in the trenches. Who can protect their quarterback better?
Yeah, I believe so. I think when have we seen the Bengals struggle? When their offensive line plays terrible and when Joe Burrow is on the ground. He was on the ground a lot last year. Jared, I think, claims him he's the GOAT already because he has the most playoff wins in Bengals history. That's not saying a lot. They only had 5 before he got there. So, Jared, congrats, I guess. But I think at the end of the day, you look at this Bengals team, and I look at the Bills team the same way. It's like, which teams are you going to get of each team? which Bill team are you going to get? Which Bengals team are you going to get? Are you going to get the Bengals team that lost to the Browns like pretty easily, right? Or are you going to get the Bengals team that goes out and is just destroying people? Or are you going to get the Bills team that's playing around with the Dolphins? Or are you going to get the Bills team that we know can put up 30 points, keep a team to like 13 points and win a big game? And for me, if the offensive line is not healthy, I don't see the Bengals winning this game. If the offensive line, let's say there's maybe three of the five are healthy, okay, they have a chance. But if you maybe only have one starter healthy, maybe two, that's maybe 50-50, I don't see them winning. And so my prediction actually is going to be the Bills. I just don't trust the line is going to be. I don't think the line is going to be healthy enough to keep him upright without him having to scramble, make plays on his feet. So I'm going to go Bills. I think it's going to be close. I think it's going to go Bills 24, Bengals 21. I think it's going to come down to like the last drive or two. So again, the health of the offensive line is what concerns me more than the Bills' struggles. It's the offensive line of the health for the offensive line. So that's my thought. That's my thought. Brice, what is your prediction for the Bengals-Bills game?
It's so tough because both the scenarios that both teams are in right now with the Bengals offensive line, and I think the Bills are just beat up a little bit, and they're a little suspect after that last game. It's like I feel like if they were to play each other 10 times, it would split 5-5.
Yeah.
So it's like what one is going to show up, and I think either team can win. So I really don't know who to pick, but the safe pick, I guess, if there is one, would just be the Bills. And it's because of the offensive line, and then I know it's maybe cliche to say, but home field advantage too in Buffalo. Something about the Bills Mafia there. Not that the Bengals can't play in the cold; it gets cold in Cincinnati as well. But yeah, I'm going. I think this game, everyone's going to want it to be super exciting and super spectacular and everything, and especially after the Monday night scenario that happened. But I think it's going to be surprisingly boring, or maybe not boring, but surprisingly low scoring. I think
not as high scoring as what some people might think.
Yeah, I think it's going to be everybody's playing a safe game, and it's going to be very methodical and strategic and slow. And but I'm going to go with the Bills 20-16 over the Bengals.
Wow,
Nice.
You ain't kidding. That is low for that game. I'll be shocked if it is that, but man, the one thing that, and I'm going to go Bills, but the one thing that's making me maybe doubt that a little bit is Joe Burrow took the Bengals to a Super Bowl last year with just as bad of an offensive line. So it's like the kid's been in this situation before. He's handled, I guess, pressure as good as anybody could. But
those are also starters though last year. Those were also starters the whole year. Like having basically a new offensive line in a big playoff game.
That's valid too.
That's
terrifying. Like last year, they didn't have any injuries in the offensive line.
Good.
Those were all the starters. But this time, it's like you got guys that haven't been playing on the offensive line this year. So there's also like the communication and chemistry that can be an issue with that too. But yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and take the Bills. I don't think it's gonna be. I think it's gonna be a little higher scoring than what Brice said. I'll take Buffalo to win 31-24.
Ooh, 31-24. Nice. So those are our predictions. And I think it's going to be a great week of football, guys. I think it's going to be a fun week of football. We're going to see what happens. There's obviously chaos going on in college football as well. Different coaches. Jim Harbaugh supposedly coming back. We won't know. We don't know until the end of summer.
Seems we've had to get it confirmed a lot. Like Jim has had to say that he will enthusiastically be back on the sideline, and the president had to come out and say, we would love to have Jim back. And then I guess the athletic director had to say that Jim Harbaugh's back. It's like, how many people have to say he's back? Like, are they trying to convince themselves he'll be back? Is Jim coming back because he never actually got an offer from the NFL? He got an interview and then thanks, but no thanks kind of thing. So by default, he has to come back to Michigan. I don't know.
And then we have Sean.
Part of that's all media.
Yeah. Then we have Sean Payton.
Yeah, you never know like what's actually smoke and what's actually fact. And
then you have Sean Payton, who's going in and interviewing, and teams might have to give up a mid-first round pick for him, which I'm like, is it worth it? That's always the question that hits my head. Or do you wait till after 2024? So there's that. You have CJ Stroud, who waited to literally the last final moment to declare for the NFL draft, which does go to show how much Ohio State meant to him. So many other stories, transfer stories. Again, follow us at baseline.podcast. We share a lot of the updates on our story. You can see different things that are happening, our opinions. You can also vote and do a lot of stuff on there as well. But Josh, I think to finish up today's show, we're gonna have a little talk about some fighting things that are happening that somehow ESPN
we can't have
blew up,
Brice
so.
on. We can't have Brice on without talking UFC, right? So why don't we start off with the big title fight this week, Brice? We got Brandon Moreno, who is the current belt holder, going up against guy whose name I forget right now, but he was the previous title holder.
Figueiredo.
That's why I couldn't remember it, because I probably couldn't even pronounce it even after hearing you say it. So no disrespect. It's a hard name to say, but the dude's a good fighter since he's held the belt before. Brandon Moreno is one of my favorite guys to watch in the UFC. I don't know if that's necessarily going to mean that he wins this one, unfortunately, but tell us about some of the, I guess, the styles, Brice, and what to watch in this title fight.
Well, real quick before we do that, I forgot I had my Eagles Super Bowl hat out from a few years ago. I know not everybody can see it on the video, but
if you're on video, you can see it.
There we go. I'm looking forward to this year's new Super Bowl hat. But back to the UFC. Yeah, so Brandon Moreno and Davison Figueiredo, this is going to be their fourth fight. It's the first time in UFC history where guys have fought each other for a fourth time.
Wow.
Yeah, this is a four-peat. First time ever. So the first time these guys ever fought each other was a draw. The second time, Figueiredo won. And then the third time, oh, no, I'm sorry. I'm totally wrong. I can't remember the order now that I'm pressured to think about it. But anyways, they've had a draw.
But what were the four results in the end?
So there's been three results because the fourth one's coming up. But there was a draw, draw, Brandon Moreno, Figueiredo won it back. Okay. So this is the fourth one.
Got it.
And now Brandon Moreno is going to try and win it back. But so yeah, they're both styles are super similar. Brandon Moreno is like a great wrestler. Figueiredo's more of a striker, but he has great jiu-jitsu too. This is very similar to like when we were just talking about the Bills and Chiefs matchup. It's like out of 10 times I could pick this guy 5 times, this guy 5 times. I don't know who's going to win. Personally, I agree with you. I love Brandon Moreno. I think he'll win. I actually think he won the last fight, or at least enough for it to be a draw. And he unfortunately lost the belt. But I like Moreno. It's going to be probably a 5-round back and forth, rock'em sock'em, stand and bang fight, like they all have. They've all been spectacular fights.
That's awesome. My prediction is so what I think is going to happen is that there's going to be like this hawk that's in the middle of the arena, and it's going to come down, and it's going to take out Moreno it's going to hit him in the head with his beak, right? It's going to bust him open, and then Figueroa, or however you say his name, is just going to get on top of him and just start pouncing him. Going to put him in a rear chokehold. Done. Out. Knocked him out, or choked him out, or whatever it is. Figueroa.
Is that what the crystal ball says?
The crystal ball. Hey, listen, let's just remember last time we did this whole UFC thing, who had most of them right. Thank you. I'm going to rest on that. I'm going to rest.
And another interesting...
Winners and losers, maybe not the method, but
another interesting tidbit about this fight is it's in Brazil. It's the first Brazil card since pre-COVID. And Figgy is a Brazilian fighter, so
that's why he's going to win. I knew that.
In his favor.
That's why he's going to win. The hawk is there for him.
It's going to be wild. Well, isn't that on the Mexican flag? Brandon Moreno's Mexican. Isn't there an eagle or a hawk or something?
All I know
there's some bird in the middle. I don't know what bird.
All I know is Josh is regretting anything of letting me be a part of this UFC conversation.
So wouldn't that bird though be on Brandon Moreno's side?
No, it's not. It's a traitor. It's like it's in disguise.
It's a traitor.
Josh is like, this is
so dumb.
You all better pay for the pay-per-view so you can see this, because if it happens and you miss it,
you'll never know.
Yeah, don't be the guy that misses a fourth fight. I don't even know what you call it. What would you call it after a trilogy?
Yeah, after a trilogy,
quadrilogy.
Quadrilogy?
4G? I don't know.
4G?
But don't say 4G. That is
yeah,
not,
be careful.
No,
I didn't like that either after I said it.
that is not what we want to be saying here.
Yeah. It's a safe space.
So Josh, who do you got here?
Who do I got? Well,
he doesn't know.
You said Figgy's 1-2. you said there's been a draw in each one of them. Have won one.
So yeah, the first fight was a draw, and then on the second one, Brandon Moreno won, and then the third one, Figgy won.
Okay,
So
so I'm gonna go ahead and say Moreno just because he didn't win the last fight.
yeah.
So yeah, we'll go with Moreno. I have no idea what kind of. I hope that we get like a to the end, like they get to go the distance on this one. And I'd hate to
Oh,
see a knockout
and
either way, but
yeah,
we're gonna go.
they're both super scrappy. I don't see them knock. If you go back, I recommend go back and watch the other fights. It's like neither of them have like the knockout power to knock each other out, but they just give it and take it so much. It's just so fun to
Yeah,
watch.
that makes sense too because this is flyweight, right? So they're not really heavy.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
another
so
funny tidbit is Figgy hasn't. I don't think Figgy has fought another opponent other than Brandon Moreno in like the last 2.5 years of his UFC career, which is funny. Your career is just fighting the same guy
yeah.
for two
Well, some
two
of
and a
that's
half
due
three
to
years.
injuries that he's had, right?
Some some of it,
Or
yeah,
is
but
it
that's just been the
just
scenario because he's always been like at that title spot, and Brandon Moreno
mm,
has actually fought one or two, I believe one other guy in between those as
yeah,
well. So he's had a little more experience fighting other fighters, while Figgy hasn't. So I'm just
mm,
curious to see. That's why I give Brandon Moreno an edge too. But
gotcha.
he's had the time to like work on his craft against other fighters and different versions, or express
True,
different
true.
versions of his skills. So
Yeah, makes sense. But that's this weekend. We got a couple big time fights scheduled coming up in March, I believe. We'll start off with Kamaru Usman and Leon Edwards rematch. So neither fighter has gone against anybody else since that August fight, right, Bryce? So this is going to be like a back-to-back rematch, basically.
yes, this will be a back-to-back rematch, and it's actually a trilogy fight.
Right.
They fought way back, and Usman won, and then the second one, obviously, Usman won the entire fight, and then in the last
And then in the
52
last
seconds,
second, yeah, man.
um, yeah. So there's actually two pay-per-views in March. This one's going to be the second one. The first one will be John Jones. I'm sure we'll get to that.
Hmm.
Um, Actually, I wanted to bring up. You did forget to mention the main card or the main fight on the last card with Figueiredo and Moreno. Glover Teixeira is fighting Jamal Hill, who's a rising star. That's going to be for the light heavyweight fight. The Moreno one's actually the co-main. Um,
Wild.
I just wanted to bring that up. But Glover
Thanks for
Teixeira
pointing
is
that
really
out. Yeah.
exciting. Glover
Didn't
Teixeira
know
is like
that. Yeah.
42 years old, and it's just cool watching him win. This old guy beat up on these younger guys, so that also adds a lot more value to that card that you wouldn't want to miss. But yeah, Usman Edwards, the card's in London, so Edwards is going to have that
He'll have the home
crowd behind
crowd.
him. Hopefully, he'll be able to express more confidence throughout the fight because of that. Because the last time he fought, up until that last 50 seconds, he had no
Yeah.
confidence in that fight. He was worn out by beginning of round 3, and if you listen to the audio, you hear his ref in the background like, "Come on, Rocky!" Like straight up Rocky Balboa stuff. Gets him pumped up, and he goes out and does that kick, which was really cool. But if I'm gonna make a prediction, I'm gonna say Usman probably. I think Usman's gonna come back and win it. I think he'll probably finish. I think we're gonna finally see his wrestling because that's his specialty, and we never get to see it. So I think we're
Right.
gonna see him ground and pound Leon Edwards improve, jump back up to that top 3, top 2 pound for pound fighters, and get his title back.
Yeah. I mean, up until that last fight, Usman had never lost in the UFC, so that was kind of something new. And then just like in the fashion that happened too, like it just in the last like seconds of the last round, it's just a huge shock to everybody. But Leon Edwards is a good fighter, and I don't think that Usman necessarily was overlooking him or taking him easy beforehand. But I think you're gonna get to see a lot more motivated version of Kamaru Usman in this one, and I'm
Yeah,
gonna go ahead and say that Usman wins this trilogy fight. Don't know how
yeah.
it's gonna turn out, but
Leon's going to try really hard to keep that distance because I know Usman's going to try and shoot that takedown, which is Leon's specialty. He's super long. He's a great
mm-hmm.
kickboxer, but eventually Usman's going to grab him, clinch him, take him down.
I'm going with Usman because just am.
All right.
There's not any like animals coming
birds?
in or
No, this
divine
time there will
intervention.
be no. It's mainly just going to be that man versus man. Yeah, I have nothing creative on that one. That's just blanking on that one.
Well, that's probably a more accurate prediction, though, Ben. To be honest,
yeah, I would say.
Because
I think I was reading too much into it. You just said it how it is.
Yeah, just saying how it is. Just like how I say John Bone Jones is coming back with a thriller and he's going to win. Because first off, it's John Bone Jones, the only guy I really knew in the UFC before I really started looking into it. So that guy's going to come back with a firepower. He's going to win via knockout first round.
Well, I'm glad we got your prediction out of the way right now, so we don't have to listen to you.
Now me and Brice can, talk like intellectuals about the fight and the specifics and the stuff, right?
Playing a game right now, so
play the game. All right. First off, Brice, I guess that's the headline: is John Jones is back after years of, I guess, flirting with being a heavyweight and taking a while to get, I guess, an opponent just because of like money issues and stuff. We get to see John Jones fight for the belt with Cyril Gane. And a couple of reasons for that are because one, Francis Ngannou dealing with injury, I believe, but also did not sign a new contract. And then I believe you told me earlier in the week that Stipe also could not get the money that he wanted for this fight. So maybe not the big names that we would have thought that John Jones might, I guess, attract. But what's your impression, or is there anything else happening behind the scenes that maybe you saw in the UFC community that led up to this matchup?
Yeah, there's a lot to hit on in the whole John Jones and Francis Ngannou situation. A lot of stuff actually just came out recently, a little bit ago today, with Francis Ngannou. He came out and said everything that he talked about in the meeting with the UFC, and he put up a bunch of proposals that he wanted. He was hoping for at least one or two of those to be agreed upon for him to sign with the UFC again. One of them was he wanted an advocate to speak for the fighters in the UFC council meetings when they get to decide the matchups and just all the politics of it. Another one was he wanted to be able to have sponsorships. So UFC fighters cannot have their own personal sponsorships like they would back in the day, where they'd have their own sponsors on shorts and things like that.
What do you mean by so they can't can they have brand deals? Like, can they sign, I guess, contracts, just not have like any kind of logo on like their shorts or anything like that?
Yeah, that would be correct. So yeah, like if you look back at like old UFC fights, they'd have all kinds of logos but yeah, they can have brand sponsors. That you see a lot of guys.
I was gonna say, I think Francis actually has a deal with Gymshark, so
yeah, but he's not allowed to like represent that in the octagon, I guess, per se.
Yeah,
I don't know all the technical stuff, but I know that's a big thing that a lot of UFC fighters are mad about, because it costs them from making a bunch of money that they
could make more, if they could do that.
Yeah. So they have to like only do the sponsors that UFC says. Like you'll see a lot of guys holding up the Monster Energy cans at the end of fights, or body armor. So they're kind of like restricted to those things. Yeah. And the third one, it's slipping my mind, but everybody can go and listen to that video. It literally just came out a couple hours ago, him saying everything. But it's a really crappy situation, because I think he has draw. I mean, who doesn't want to
Francis,
see this big beast of
everyone loves watching that dude. Freakish athlete.
Yeah, and he wanted a three-fight deal. He wanted to fight Jones, Stipe, and fight Jones again. And they just couldn't work it out. So what happened is John Jones just signed an 8-fight deal. So he's going to be around for a long time.
He's around a while, yeah.
Yeah, it's like, I can't remember the money. I think it was like $8 million, just straight up. I can't remember. But John Jones has an 8-fight deal, and I'm just excited to see him around for a long time now. To watch his possibly win the heavyweight title and defend. We don't have to wait anymore.
Right. Yeah, so I guess that just shows that there's two sides to every story, because Dana kind of came out and said that they offered Francis, I think, the highest heavyweight contract in UFC history, and he didn't want anything to do with it. And then I guess there's some things on Francis' end that he wanted. Do you think those are like valid concerns? Do you think there's like a right and a wrong in this situation at all? Or do you think they both, I guess, had reasons for a disagreement?
I do remember the third one now. It was a life insurance. I guess the UFC doesn't offer life insurance.
Which I think is
Really?
very funny, the fact
Yeah.
that they get their heads kicked in.
Yeah. So
Interesting.
to answer the question you just brought up, because that's what made me pop up. Oh yeah, that was the one that I had the biggest issue with. I can understand them not wanting the advocate thing and the whole union thing. That stuff gets all political and drama behind all that. But yeah, the life insurance thing, come on.
Yeah.
I don't have enough knowledge on to why the UFC doesn't to say, but that one did kind of rub me the wrong way. And it seems like a good thing to like desire and to fight for. I know he's not the only UFC fighter that's requested that. But yeah, John Jones is now the most paid heavyweight of all time, more so than Brock Lesnar, and the second most paid UFC fighter of all time behind Conor McGregor.
I will say it's going to be a crazy round of fights because, you know, I obviously pay attention to every UFC fight. Most of the time when I share it, I just share it because I don't know what to comment. I'm like, oh, sweet. No, I think it's going to be a crazy rounds of fights. And honestly, this is why we have Brice come on, because Josh and I would just like be like, yeah, cool guys coming. Awesome. Going to be a good fight. No, and that's like why we had Jared come on for soccer, and you know, that's why we like having people like Brice on and David Cohn and a lot of these other guys that come on and share their knowledge of sports. And so, Josh, do you have any final words of wisdom, or Brice, do you have any final words of wisdom for our listeners that would just brighten their day?
Well, let me just throw out my prediction for the Jones.
Oh yes, I didn't even say it. Yeah, I didn't even say it.
Yeah, I'm sorry. So yeah, again, Stipe, I guess was a money issue, but now we see Stipe is actually calling out. He wants the winner of Jones and Gane, which I think is probably going to happen. But so yeah, money issue. So Gane signed, which I actually think Cyril Gane is the most fun matchup for John Jones. It's going to be super technical. He doesn't even look like a heavyweight. He is very similar to Stipe in his like frame and how he can move, and he's quick and he's a great boxer. So I'm excited to see what kind of challenge he brings to John Jones. But John Jones has phenomenal ground game, and we saw Francis Ngannou handle Cyril Gane so easily on the ground.
We did.
I think we're going to see Jones probably take him down and end it probably by round 3, round 4. But he's going to be rusty. But yeah, it's really early to make a prediction for that. But right now, I'm just going to say John Jones.
Yeah, I would lean towards John Jones too, but it's like you said, he's probably going to look a little rusty. Will he look Deshaun Watson rusty? I don't know, but it's also like kind of a big jump from going up to heavyweight too. But I mean, if you can fight, you can fight. So, and he's also a bigger fighter now himself, so I think he'll be better set up for that. But
all I know is
I'm going to go ahead and, like I said, lean John Jones for now.
All I know is he's going to get the job better done than the Republicans in the House. Sorry. I got my.
He will get it done.
I got my political joke in. No, but I will say, Brice, thank you so much for coming on today. We appreciate it every single time you're on. I know our audience loves listening to you, mainly because they don't have to listen to us two all the time. Okay, just you know what? One of these days. See, I have nothing to say. Like I can't fight.
One of these days, we'll have a Cleveland Browns Super Bowl champions hat.
Oh yeah, I realized you guys didn't have one of these hats.
Listen, I do have one. It's called the Baltimore Ravens championship. Technically, it's the Browns. Okay, but we do really appreciate Brice coming on. And as always, it makes our time a little bit more fun and a little more interesting as well. So thank you, Brice, for coming on. We appreciate it. Do you have any final words?
I'll see you when the Eagles are in the Super Bowl, and I will beat Jared's record. I think we're probably tied now 4-4.
Yes, 4-4.
Once the Eagles are in the Super Bowl, I'll come on again and make sure I surpass Ben. But if it is Bengals versus Eagles, I want to see him in this. We're going to go back and forth.
We have to do it.
We will do it.
We have to do it
for sure. So once again, everyone, thank you guys so much for listening. If you love this episode of the podcast on YouTube, give us a thumbs up, like the video, subscribe to the channel, then share the video. Let us all know what you think. Comment below. You know what? You need to comment below. You need to comment this. Who had the most accurate predictions for the NFL playoffs games for this week? Let us know in the comments below. I'm really interested to see what you say. And then if you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, make sure you share it. Share it on your Instagram story, share it on your Facebook story, share it on Facebook itself. whatever you want to do. Let us keep growing. Let us keep doing what we love to do in order for us to get the best information to you as possible. And before you know it, we're going to have mock drafts. We're going to have NCAA tournament bubbles and all these different things we're going to be deciding. So once those things happen, they will be happening very soon, hopefully sooner rather than later. So once again, thank you guys so much for listening. And until next time, we'll see ya.